When I tried the demo a week ago and saw the launcher price, I had low expectations. The game's aesthetics were absolutely incredible, but the gameplay felt unfinished, dull, and engaging. So imagine my surprise when I found out the actual released product turned out much better. Crisol, the Theater of Idols, is one of my favorite survival horror games since Resident Evil 7. Crisol wears its inspirations on its sleeve. Take Bioshock, Lies, and P of the Blaze Falls, and mix them with the gameplay loop of Resident Evil 7 Ria Village, and this is what you get. The combat is excellent. Guns sound drastically better than in the demo, and it makes all the difference. I loved the arsenal. Knife parries feel much more irresponsive. The stalker from the demo's AI seems to be more improved as well. The blood revolt mechanic turned out to be more interesting than I expected. However, there is a lot of unexplored territory here, and a DLC or a sequel has tons of potential that can be fleshed out. The enemies were also quite creepy. They startled me more times in this game than all post Resident Evil 7 games combined. I had an amazing time with it, but it's not perfect, and I would like to see some more things patched or improved. For starters, there's a usual yellow paint problem. I also can't stand how modern protagonists keep explaining every little thing out loud for the player. I wish there was an accessibility option to turn both of these things off, especially the latter one, or at least make it random. I had one encounter near the end of the game where Gabriel keeps saying it's done, or something like that when moving trolleys to make a path. The problem is, if you move them back to their original position, they will say done again. This led to a needless confusion. I thought there was a puzzle to solve when there was anything left to do in this scenario. It was a waste of time, and I'd rather he said nothing at all. I also don't enjoy the squeezing through the gaps gimmick. This trope needs to go extinct. Thankfully, it doesn't happen that often. I like the story and the world a lot, but there are some narrative tone choices I do not understand the reasoning behind. Early on, you're introduced to a character called Mediodia, and her presence in the story is quite jarring. If she's meant to be comic relief, I don't think it works well. She just made the horrors of the Tormentosa harder to take seriously. I would argue Medioria's presence also negatively impacts the ending, though I won't be elaborate on that. I still like the ending and I enjoyed the plot twist. Don't expect Bioshock 1 levels of storytelling, but the game is clearly narratively inspired by it and puts a very interesting spin on it, and that had me invest throughout. Overall, the story surprised me and I liked it. You'll hear a lot of dialogue that reminds us of the town, and it's hit or miss. Some are really good, some are flat. Luckily, Gabriel's voice actor was really good in this game. He sounds a lot like Daniel from Amnesia The Dark Descent. I say that is a compliment. The game also longer than I expected. Combat gets more interesting the more weapons and skills unlock over time. The environments are stunning and varied despite some reused assets and the puzzles. I found it much harder than your average survival horror game. I think Tormented Souls might be the only game I can recall having all held the puzzles. It's quite interesting that for how handheld the game tends to be with the yellow paint and voice cues, the puzzles are the polar opposite. This feels wrong to me. I'd rather the game gave hints where it's met most puzzles than point obvious direction in semi-linear game. A separate difficult for combat puzzles like Silent Hill's Woods have been great. That's not to say I didn't enjoy the puzzles, some of them were interesting and I liked the game demanded critical thinking of that, but they can really slow an otherwise brace-priced game to a crawl. I'd be interested to see how they affect replayability. So far, I don't see a new Game Plus option, which is baffling for a survival horror game. Speaking of pacing issues, there's both diving sections in the latter half of the game. They're the worst parts of the game, they're too slow and they will hurt replayability. They need to be at minimum 50% faster to drive and significantly faster to turn around. Either that or some heavy upgrades you can unlock at the hub locations differ to make it faster. I enjoyed the sound design too, though the mixing could have some use polish. This is a really small nitpick, however. Despite all this, the only major issue I encountered was some of the checkpoints the game overloads wouldn't load properly. An encounter near the end of the game wouldn't trigger the enemy script to spawn in, and I had to backtrack to the last location, then walk back to the new location, otherwise the game wouldn't let me proceed. My only advice to players: start on easy, normal difficulty with autosaves, plus save often. Don't jump straight into the hardest mode. Those were some of my gripes, but the game's positives far outweigh the negatives for me. I wouldn't be surprised if it will be in the top 10 games of the year. Even with all the little problems that I hope will be patched sooner than later, I don't know how the game price is so low. I've played lesser games at thrice the price. Hey, that rims. Blumhouse Vermeil Studios might have a Resident Evil competitor on their hands here. I look forward to seeing what comes next. So guys, thank you for watching this review. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button.